Now, if you realize that Bo Hines is in this and kind of an advisor, what if they've worked out a deal with some of these stable coin holders? Say, here's what you're going to do. Anytime a dollar moves across the globe, you're going to back it with U.S. Treasuries to lower the rates synthetically, not organically. You're going to do that. And then you're going to take the proceeds and you're going to buy Bitcoin to someday maybe pay down the debt. And you're going to buy gold, not to let gold go much higher just for the hell of it, but because rising gold devalues the dollar, right? And makes exports more attractive.
In a world facing growing financial instability, precious metals expert Andy Schectman warns that silver and gold are on the verge of a historic price surge. His argument is built on deep structural flaws in the global financial system and a massive shift underway in global trade, currency strength, and economic confidence. Schectman begins by pointing to what economists call Triffin's dilemma, a situation where the US dollar, as the world's reserve currency, must constantly run trade deficits to supply global liquidity. Over time, this erodes America's manufacturing base and strengthens foreign economies at the expense of domestic stability. To reverse this imbalance, Schectman suggests the U.S. will eventually have to massively devalue the dollar in order to reshore manufacturing and make American exports competitive again. But this policy shift will come at a high cost: a sharp decline in the dollar's purchasing power and a surge in inflation. As global confidence in the dollar wanes, more nations are moving toward alternative trade systems, bypassing the dollar entirely. From the BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, to bilateral trade agreements in local currencies, countries are steadily reducing their reliance on the U.S. financial system. Schectman emphasizes that this trend marks the slow erosion of dollar hegemony, something that will accelerate once central banks begin holding more gold instead of U.S. Treasury debt as reserves. While gold has long been viewed as the cornerstone of financial security, Schectman argues that silver is the most undervalued asset in the world today. Industrial demand for silver, used in solar panels, electronics, and emerging technologies, continues to rise sharply. Yet physical supply is tightening, and inventories at major exchanges have been falling for months. According to Schectman, the coming silver shortage will ignite a massive price spike, as both industrial users and investors compete for limited physical supply. He describes silver as ready to explode, warning that when the rush begins, there will be far more demand than available metal. Schectman criticizes modern monetary policy for relying on endless debt creation, arguing that this system is unsustainable. Artificially low interest rates and continuous money printing have created an illusion of prosperity while undermining the long-term health of the economy. He believes that the next financial shock will expose this illusion and trigger a flight to hard assets, especially gold and silver, as investors seek real, tangible stores of value. Schectman concludes with a stark warning: the revaluation of precious metals is inevitable. Once markets realize that fiat currencies are losing credibility, the move into gold and silver will be rapid and unstoppable. Investors who position themselves early, he says, will benefit from one of the greatest wealth transfers in modern history. His message is simple but urgent. Buckle up. Silver is ready to explode. Now, we present the clips from Andy Schectman interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
How much the Trump presidency is embracing the crypto movement as opposed to gold. Do you think they're going down an erroneous path here? Or do you think in the end that they will have a positive effect on the gold market and sound money principles as well?
Yeah, I look at it a different way, Jesse. I mean, I think what they're trying to do, if I'm going to guess, is to reshore manufacturing. And the only way you do that is to massively devalue the dollar. Look at Triffin's dilemma, which says as the world reserve currency, you will always have a net deficit in global trade because your major export's going to be dollars. The world needs more dollars than we can provide through trade alone. And so countries over time have to sell their currency to buy ours, weakening theirs, strengthening ours against those currencies, that is. And so over time, manufacturing flows to where it can be produced the cheapest. Vice President Vance has come out on White House letterhead saying, no, we can't do this anymore. Triffin's dilemma, it has been a subsidy for the consumer. It's been a massive hindrance for the producer. It's a broken system. We have to move away from it. even the knucklehead that was Jared Bernstein, a true knucklehead, if anyone remembers him trying to explain how treasuries were created, he was the White House lead economic advisor under the previous administration. He did write a report called Dethrone King Dollar, where he says the same thing. Being the reserve currency is now a hindrance rather than a benefit. Now, if you are trying to bring back manufacturing, you have to have a weaker dollar. How do you get a weaker dollar? You let gold go to levels that no one can imagine, and I think you will see that. Now, you could argue Bitcoin too, but take a look at USA Tether as an example. USA Tether, which is already Genius Act compliant, their CEO is a man named Bo Hines. Bo Hines was Trump's crypto czar until August. So the rules that Bo Hines was creating, he is now benefiting from. What is Tether doing? They have 12 billion in gold right now, more than they have in Bitcoin. About 8 billion they have in Bitcoin, according to their last numbers that just came out. They were just at the Beaver Creek Mining Summit as a company. Tether was, which is one of the biggest mining summits in the country. Again, talk about Chinese disintermediating the market. Now, Tether is. So let's just play this out. The Genius Act says that any time, and to your point, I think they are using the cryptosphere, if you will, to get to where they want to go. I know that sounds kind of crazy. I mean, it's like, here's how it works. So anytime money moves, it'll be backed by a stablecoin. It will move instantly, like Venmo or Zelle across a blockchain network, instant settlement, if you will, and it will be backed by U.S. treasuries. Now, the interest on those treasuries is not transferable to the holder of the stablecoin. In other words, Tether gets to keep that interest. What are they doing with it? Well, they're buying more gold than they are Bitcoin, but they're buying Bitcoin too. Now, if you realize that Bo Hines is in this and kind of an advisor, what if they've worked out a deal with some of these stablecoin holders? Say, here's what you're going to do. Anytime a dollar moves across the globe, you're going to back it with U.S. treasuries to lower the rates synthetically, not organically. You're going to do that. And then you're going to take the proceeds and you're going to buy Bitcoin to someday maybe pay down the debt. And you're going to buy gold, not to let gold go much higher just for the hell of it, but because rising gold devalues the dollar, right? And makes exports more attractive. Now, you mentioned backing U.S. treasuries. I mean, we had Michelle McCory, who runs part of my YouTube channel, had Judy Shelton on again. I had her on 6 months ago, but she said the same thing to Michelle, that in no uncertain terms, she believes, according to what Trump told her, that we will peg the back end of the bond market to gold July 4th of next year, the 250th anniversary of the country. So let's put it all together. So if you have synthetic demand created through the stablecoin movements by everything has to be backed by short-term U.S. treasuries, and then that pushes rates down, gives demand to the treasury synthetically to run the government, and the proceeds of those things go to gold, which raises it synthetically, and to Bitcoin. At the same time, you now peg it to the back end of the bond market, the 5, 10, 20, 30, and even 50-year treasury. What does that do? Number one, it keeps rates low to stimulate the economy synthetically and gives synthetic demand for the U.S. Treasury. It takes all of that extra money and puts it towards gold and Bitcoin, devaluing the dollar, giving us the ability to slowly pay down our debt using Bitcoin. But now if you take gold and back it to the Treasury market on the back end, you have zero upfront borrowing costs. You bring back your manufacturing at zero upfront borrowing costs. Yes, you have to pay it in gold in 20 or 30 years. Okay, fine. But the upfront borrowing costs are pretty much mitigated to zero. Bringing back your manufacturing, reshoring it, making all the new facilities that you need to make at zero upfront borrowing and selling your goods into a massively devalued dollar. In other words, what I believe they are doing, look at all the crumbs, they're giving up on the reserve status in order to support the bond market. And by doing so, they would actually have a fighting chance, perhaps, to grow our way out of a problem. So I do believe that you will see. Now, people talk about, will gold be revalued? Look, that's not conspiracy anymore. It is actually in the Genius Act and says in 2026, they will revalue gold. Now, they could market to market, or maybe they go much higher. James Rickards is saying 24,000. He gets there by dividing the money supply into gold. Not sure exactly how he gets that calculation. It was a while ago when I listened to what he was saying, but the point of it is, you put gold at that level, it benefits every central bank on the planet. but it massively devalues the dollar. That's the point. The dollar in relation to gold would fall tremendously. And that alone would give us the ability to start selling our product to the rest of the world at a devalued dollar, giving up on the reserve status in order to reshore manufacturing, in order to have the ability to grow our way out. We are at a point in time, Jesse, where 60% of this country has a literacy rate below a sixth grade level. 60% can't read past the sixth grade level and have no college education. AI is already kneecapping entry-level jobs, and they predict in 3 or 4 years, half of those entry-level jobs will be affected by AI. So if you don't make anything, and AI is changing the dynamics of the world, and your population is less educated than ever, yeah, you got some problems. So I do think if there is any nobility in what he is trying to do, if I'm right, it is to bring back manufacturing. And the only way to do that would be to revalue gold, to devalue the dollar, give up on the reserve status, as Triffin's dilemma cites. And besides, all these countries around the world, they want to trade in their own currencies. They want to determine their own fate. They want the strength or weakness of their currency to mean something, settling imbalances in gold. And I think we're coming around full circle to gold always being the center of the monetary system. In the BRICS nations, it will be a vehicle to settle trade and currency imbalances. Here, I think it's going to back the treasury market. To retain demand for the treasury market at the same time, they are loosening their desire or relinquishing their desire to maintain world reserve status. So we'll see. That's my thesis, and I've been saying it for a long time, and I believe it. We'll see how it plays out, because if we don't, our next generation and the one after that is in massive trouble, because, you don't live in the AI sphere or on Wall Street. Where are you going to make the money? And I think that's something people need to think about for a moment. And I do think he's trying to bring back manufacturing. This would be the only way to do it.
Precious metals expert Andy Schectman warns that gold and silver are on the brink of a major price surge as global financial instability deepens. He explains that the US dollar's role as the world's reserve currency, known as Triffin's dilemma, has forced America to run constant trade deficits, weakening its economy and manufacturing base. To correct this, Schectman believes the U.S. will eventually need to devalue the dollar, leading to higher inflation and reduced purchasing power. As global confidence in the dollar fades, more nations are moving away from dollar-based trade and increasing their gold reserves, signaling the slow erosion of dollar dominance. Schectman highlights silver as the most undervalued asset, with rising industrial demand and shrinking supply creating conditions for a dramatic price spike. He criticizes the current financial system for relying on endless debt and money printing, calling it unsustainable. When this illusion collapses, investors will rush toward hard assets like gold and silver, driving prices even higher. Schectman's final message is clear and urgent. Buckle up, silver is ready to explode. Those who act before the coming financial reset, he warns, will be best positioned to preserve and grow their wealth.